There's something uniquely haunting about abandoned vehicle cases: a wrecked car, hazards blinking, personal belongings still inside, and no sign of the driver. It feels impossible, but it happens more often than people realize. Why these cases grip the public? These cases grip the public because there's the fear of isolation. There's the fear of running out of gas, or your cell phone battery being dead, or being in an abandoned area or an isolated area and not getting your way back home, or running out of gas, or running into someone who may be a perpetrator of some kind and who could harm you and maim you. As well as uninterrupted journeys, because ultimately cars are seen as safety, as having fun with friends, family, people you love, listening to music, jamming to music, and having relationships with others. Also, there is a psychological discomfort in humans of unfinished stories. We all want completed loops, which is likely why we have a true crime obsession, because unsolved mysteries grip us harder than anything else. And abandoned vehicles can feel frozen in time. If you find a vehicle out in a cornfield and you see the vehicle and you realize that this vehicle was headed to some destination. However, the vehicle still has the belongings in it. The vehicle still has the personal effects. The vehicle has evidence that someone was in there at one point in time. Now they're no longer there. Where'd they go? Why'd they go? Did they go voluntarily? Were they taken? What was their purpose? What happened to that person? And we often hope that nothing terrible happened to them, because humans are pretty optimistic sometimes by nature. And abandoned vehicles can feel frozen in time because they're the only lasting semblance of the story. But they can't talk, they can't offer evidence unless there's certain things that point toward a certain theory or route that it can actually be backed up. And so ultimately, let's talk about what happens after a crash. Oftentimes there's a lot of adrenaline and a lot of confusion. I can actually testify to that because I was actually in a car accident when I was 16. A head cheerleader actually ran a yield sign and then got out of her car and tried to beat me up and all that fun stuff. But I was in such shock, especially after I saw my younger cousin get strapped to a gurney. And I thought, oh my gosh, she's paralyzed, any number of things. Or, she's seriously injured, which terrified me. And then I kept going back to check to see if I had ran a stop sign, because I had been told if I ever got into a car accident that I would not get another car and I would not be driving for a very long time. Turns out she was the one that ran the yield sign, and so that's what happened there. But I just kept going back, and I just remember a lot of things were very fuzzy, and likely that was the result of the adrenaline and the confusion and the fear. And so there can also be concussions and disorientation, which I did feel somewhat disoriented. I was also extremely stressed. So every time they would get me calmed down, they were checking my heart rate, and I would literally spike. So they were like, we need to get her calmed down. We need to get her calmed down. I called my grandfather, and my grandfather met me at the hospital. And he actually was like, it's okay, girl. Like, you'll be fine. We'll figure it out. And so it's a lot of fight and flight responses where there's this fear and this overwhelm that likely you didn't have experience for, especially at 16 years old. And wandering behavior, which I think some of what I was doing was just trying to just get my mind off what was going on, as well as fear of consequences, even though it wasn't fear of consequences for me, as I was wearing my seatbelt and doing what I needed to be doing. And then also some people may be worried about having imbibed alcohol, and so potentially looking at OWI consequences. And then there's panic assumptions that things are going to be bad, things, I'm going to get in trouble, I'm going to this, I'm going to that. I didn't have any of that. I was a little annoyed at her behavior, though, because she was the one that caused the accident, and she was continually, not really fessing up to it or acknowledging it. The other thing is, we talk about famous patterns here in these cases. Generally, it's rural roads, it's nighttime disappearances, weather exposure, delayed searches, and missed evidence opportunities, which makes these cases extremely difficult to solve. We just started a new one on Brandon Swanson, if you're interested in that case. And then there's investigative challenges, right? Such as jurisdictional issues. Which jurisdiction is going to have the jurisdiction to be able to do it, right? As well as search radius misconceptions. A lot of those, you don't really know how far the person has gone, especially if there are no witnesses. And a lot of these cases don't have witnesses, unfortunately. And then you deal with witness credibility or witness reliability. How reliable are the witnesses? What did they see? Did they see what they said they did? Are they being pressured to say certain things that didn't occur? Did they even see this? Or are they trying to get notoriety? Are they trying to get social media or media attention? And early assumptions can derail cases if they are not thought out, proven, and researched and looked into and corroborated, because that is a really big thing, because early assumptions are just that at that point, assumptions, unless they can actually be proven. And then let's talk about the human element. Families left in limbo, not knowing what happened to their loved one, not knowing where they are. Are they hungry? Are they cold? Are they scared? I mean, what is going on? Are they alive or are they not, And ambiguous grief. Ambiguous grief is waiting for grief to happen, waiting to find out, is this person alive? Is this person harmed? Where are they at? When are we going to find them? Are we ever going to find them? Those are real questions. And that's why I don't envy the survivors of people who've lost loved ones, because that would be the hardest thing in the world, to continue waiting for an answer that may or may not ever come. And unresolved disappearances psychologically linger because we want a closed loop. We want a happy ending. We want people to be found. Not only for them, but for us, so we can know that they're safe. And public obsessions with the last sighting. There are a lot of documentaries that talk about the last sighting, and those can be extremely haunting, extremely sad, and just extremely like, oh, really. The case for me that I've been really focused on for a long time is Jennifer Kessie. I do hope that one day she is found and her family is able to rest, because that is a very difficult and tough situation to endure. So, in closing, an abandoned vehicle is more than evidence. It's the last physical marker of a human being whose story suddenly stopped, while everyone else was left trying to figure out where the road actually ended. Thank you for tuning in to Grace and Gavel, where truth meets compassion. My name is Buffy. I'm an almost 18-year criminal defense attorney. And I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in. And I hope that you'll come back and see me again soon. If you got some value from this, please feel free to like and subscribe. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.